I am. I was looking at the topics that were listed in the on your Twitter message and kind of looking at this, going, okay, what do I have to say about any of this? And then Googling it really quick to sort of figure out what I was going to say.
The things is spoiler alerts. There's nothing really to Google about that.
Okay, maybe I was we'll say exaggerating the point when I said everything. When I said everything, perhaps I meant more along the lines of most.
You don't know, and you had to go find out what the hell Skyblivion is?
No, I just needed to look it up really quick to see if I had any opinion on it. Mostly, I was looking up these Sadie's headset crashes. And ESO, well, that's too big of a topic for me to look up. I just know I'm going to have nothing to say about it. But anyways, I'm ready when you are.
Well, are we going to do an intro?
Oh, yes, we are going to do an intro. We are going to do an actual intro. I was just letting you know. All right, that was not it. Here we go.
No. I know you like doing your intros.
I do. Well, I think it's good to sort of establish the mood, the energy. It's a good sort of. What I like about an intro, and this maybe we'll work this into the intro. What I like about the intro is that it kind of sort of sets the tone. It's a sort of a semi-scripted thing that you can something that it's sort of rehearsed, and that you can, it kind of gets your momentum going for whatever you're going to be talking about. Plus, in addition to that, it kind of does. Introduce the audience to you, especially if it's kind of like your first foot forward. If it's something that's rehearsed, it's something that you know, it kind of, you're doing less stumbling because you're not just sort of thinking on the fly, and it does a good job of, we'll say, introducing the audience to the people who are going to be talking. So without any further ado, I could go ahead and start with, hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Younger Scrolls, the podcast of the Younger Scrolls when they were younger, when they were still being written. We are the rough draft of the Elder Scrolls as they would become. I am joined today by
Brian from Azrael Enterprise.
Brian from Azrael Enterprise, and I am, because I didn't introduce myself, because I wanted to be polite and let him go first. I am Jason from various places, so, yeah, I could go ahead and plug myself in, but I'm not going to.
Well, I think you're not plugged in, so you're using wireless?
No, I'm not. Well, I guess in a way I have. I've gone for the full mental uplink. I'm not even in front of a computer. I'm just beaming all this from my mind into the internet. So I guess, yes, I am doing true wireless.
In front of the computer, that must mean you're in the bathroom.
Well, yeah, if you're not on the computer, then you're obviously in the bathroom. Like, where else would I be?
Like ESO?
I'm playing it with my mind. In my mind, I am playing ESO, and in my mind, we were on a completely different patch than what's currently live, and I like the mind version a lot better. Yeah, it's good fun. But those of us, well, maybe those of you who are not in, we'll say the plugged into sort of mental brainscape. How is ESO? On the older patches.
I don't know how the older patches are, but I know how it is on the Xbox One.
And how is it?
I played it for like a week. I got bored.
So wait, a week? Did you just get that recently?
Gave up on it like 3 weeks ago.
Okay, so I can't remember. I don't think you were playing that by the time when we did the last episode, were you?
I think I had already given up.
Oh, you had already given up then. So. What made you give up? Yeah, so like what was we'll say the like you said it was boring, but obviously you have no problem with like Skyrim. You like Skyrim. What was it about ESO that kind of made you go, this is not doing it for me?
Much I don't know what the hell's going on. It's not like with Skyrim. You have to kill. You got to kill Alduin. They tell you at the beginning. This was like, you're a prisoner. We just saved you. Help us do quests. Hi.
Oh,
what's the end game here?
Oh, okay. So as interesting as this is, it's like an open world game without a direction. It's kind of interesting that your complaint with it would be kind of, in a way, part of the draw of an Elder Scrolls game. Yet I guess it does kind of, we'll say, accentuate or kind of, we'll say, bring to light the point of maybe a little bit of direction in an open world game is a good thing.
Yeah. But one of the other things is that I'm playing as an orc. The orcs are giving me their calling me like they're calling me names. They're calling me names that you would call someone who's not an orc. They're calling me Neil Drinker and you weakling. Like, you not realize I'm an orc too?
Did the orcs hurt your feelings? Is that why you're stopping to play?
They hurt my feelings.
He's like, it's not just the other players. The NPCs are griefing me. I can't take this. I'm done. He throws down the headset.
And then another thing is that with like in Skyrim, you have, or pretty much all the other scrolls, you have the different things you can upgrade. This went so far in depth with it. It just was like it's too much. It's that you have a level for making clothes. There's a level for making armor, level for making shields. It was just too in depth.
Okay. See, to me that sounds like something that I would like. Especially with I think my views are pretty well known about the Elder Scrolls. Is about over time how things have gotten simplified. They've removed skills, and I've actually think that's been to the detriment of the series as a whole. So that's something I think I would like. However, I think there is a line where you get to a point where it's like, okay, now you're getting a little bit too in depth. I don't think it would be considered too in depth for me, but everyone has a different threshold as to what they can handle. So I totally get that.
And you can absolutely completely customize whatever armor you get because you can dye the clothing and you can dye armor and paint it, which that's cool. I shouldn't be going there going, oh wait, I can't make this hood because I don't have the right level. It's a hood.
Well, if you've ever done any sort of sewing or any sort of kind of craftsmanship yourself, you would know. Sorry, I don't want to say realize because that makes it sound kind of like a condescending tone. That's not what I'm trying to get at. But like for example, I like doing like tabletop gaming, like RPGs and stuff like that. And I had some old torn up jeans, and I was like, okay, you know what? Instead of throwing these out, I had this whole idea. Well, maybe I'll just go ahead and I can turn this into a dice bag. Nice, simple project. Just cut up the material, go ahead, sew it together, and it sounds like something simple. It's a bag, right? I'm going to be sewing together a bag, and
you just use the pocket.
Well, that's one thing, but I wanted to make a few different pouches.
Take the pocket and then fold over a hem with a shoestring in there. That's it.
Well, sure, but I also wanted to challenge myself a little bit. See, taking the pocket, that'd be the easy route. But I wanted to go ahead and make something from just cloth, and that would be a little bit more representative of somebody who would want to craft something out of just a piece of cloth. And I found there to be challenges with that. Something as simple as making a bag. If you don't have the skill set before, it sounds like something simple, but I think most people, the simple things that surround us every day, when you actually think about what would be needed to make those things, you kind of appreciate the people who actually have the skills to be able to make those things. So, something as simple as a hood, I get it. Even if you know how to do it in real life, your character does not. And that's the whole point of a role-playing game is, your skills and the skills of the character you're playing don't always necessarily match up. And something as simple as making a hood, like if I tried to make a hood, I'm willing to bet I would look like an idiot. I would more likely make a sack that I would put on my head so that people wouldn't have to look at my ugly face. So arguably it would be more of a success than if I had tried to make a hood, but I guess it depends on who you ask.
I actually made my shorts for high school. I made shorts.
Yeah, actually, I was in 8th grade, and when we had home ec, I actually did end up making myself a pair of shorts. But I think I had like a plan, and there was a teacher there along the way. But if somebody had handed me some material right now and said, "Go ahead and make some shorts," I would look at them kind of like, "Yeah, okay."
Home economics in 8th grade.
Sure.
What's the final school level for you guys there in Canada?
Technically, it's grade 12. I was the last. There was actually technically an official grade 13, and I was part of the last group to have that. But now, currently, it is grade 12. At least for my area, I know that there was an official 13th grade. But
now, the actual building that houses those last couple school years, you call that a high school?
Yes.
Okay, because I was never sure if you guys have junior high, high school, or you like the English who have primary and secondary.
It's maybe closer to that because let me see here. The first school I went to only went up to grade 6, but then I had to transfer to a different school. But that school went basically all the way, I believe, from kindergarten all the way up to grade 8, and that was considered primary school. Yeah, and that was considered primary school, and then the secondary or high school was grade 9 and up.
The U.S. is different. They break them down a lot further. You got elementary, junior high, and then high school. It's elementary, middle school, junior high, high school.
Yeah, and it's possible that it varies by geographic location. I admittedly am in a, we'll say, different area. I'm not like in a big urban center like Toronto, so it's possible they have that kind of division there. I think it also matters what buildings you have available, and we'll say how many kids you have. If you need to sort of consolidate the kids you have just because budgeting reasons, that could be a thing. But as far as my own experience goes, that's how it's gone. There's primary and secondary. So I guess based on what you said, it is a little bit closer to, we'll say, the English system.
Now here's the thing: high school starts at 9th grade, junior high ends at 8th. So I'm going, he's taking home economics in junior high school.
Yeah, I guess technically
don't teach that in this country at all.
No,
I think they teach it at all. It wasn't in my school.
Huh? Yeah, I learned.
I think they should bring that back and and teach like financing and stuff like that.
Oh, I completely
balance
agree.
your budget.
Yes, I completely agree. There's a lot of things that I think should be taught in schools that aren't, because there's a lot of things that are really quite important. Like, for one thing, I don't recall ever being. Yeah, I don't recall ever being taught. We'll say about like our Bill of Rights, for example. And I had to look that up myself to really learn what those things were.
Wait, Canada has a Bill of Rights?
Sure.
Why not? As far as I know, there's a constitution. I think, right? You guys have a constitution, don't you?
I'm trying to remember if that's the official term for it, but yeah, is it a charter of? We have something, we'll say, akin to, we'll say, the Constitution, which does outline rights and freedoms and such. So
all I know is that the Republic of Canada only lasted 6 months and then it collapsed. The Republic of Canada, right?
I'm looking around my room. My eyes are bouncing around my room as I try to search for information relevant to what you're saying. I don't know.
What the hell is it? I just did a Pocket Bios video on him. William Mackenzie.
Okay.
William Lyon Mackenzie. He was the first mayor of Toronto.
I haven't watched that video, so I'm not familiar.
After he's mayor, they have a revolt. It's the Rebellion of Lower Canada, 1870, and they take over this island and claim it as the Republic of Canada.
I think that one.
Then it collapses 6 months later.
It sounds familiar because I think I had learned something about that in 8th grade. 8th grade is when we learned a lot of our, we'll say, Canadian history, and it sounds familiar. Like, I recognize the name, and I kind of remember a little bit of what you're saying. But 8th grade was, that was what, almost 20? No, almost 20 years ago for me. Dang, okay. So my memory's a little bit, we'll say, rusty on that topic.
Yeah, well, I just made a video on him, so it's fresh in my head.
Okay, well, maybe I'll go refresh myself with that later.
Hopefully, when this comes out, the most current one will be Pedro the First, Brazil. That's the one I'm working on as we record this. He's the first Brazilian guy.
First Brazilian guy.
Well, he's Portuguese, but he's the emperor of Brazil.
Okay.
Pretty much everyone I've been doing so far has either been Europe or from North America.
Yeah. Now, actually, you know what? While
two people from the Middle East. I did 2 people from the Middle East.
Okay.
This is the first guy that's from South America.
That's cool. Now, while we're on this topic, because I know we've kind of drifted off topic, but I think this is kind of interesting. We did talk a little bit about ourselves. I believe in the first episode we tried to talk a little bit, but maybe we'll say a question here. I tend to notice you have this an interest, in historical things. Flags. We've talked about flags here on the show. What is it about, we'll say, history? Is there certain elements of history that really sort of intrigue you? What about history really sort of drives you and motivates you to make these videos? Like, why do you like making these videos so much?
A lot of it's just I purely like, it's interesting. And especially with somebody, and then there's some of it is just strictly, I'm making the video because I'm pissed off that the fact that they never taught this in school. I told you, I told you this is how every war, it's that the Pilgrims show up, a year later is the American Revolution, which took a year. Then we have the Civil War, which took a couple months. And then it's World War I was a couple months. And then World War II we're there for 7 years, and that's not even right. And then skip over Korean War. Vietnam was in 1969, and then World Trade Center. Like, there's so much information that they lost out on. Like, how the hell did we get the West Coast? Where did we get West Coast from? Even teach that, like I said, that I told you that Canada never fought in a war, and you're like, oh, yes, we have. Don't teach that in school.
Okay, so it's basically, we'll say a wanting to sort of share this information. You kind of you like seeing where we've come from, and you think that this is sort of information that we should all know because, the whole saying, those who fail to study history are doomed to repeat it. Yeah, those kind of things. It's kind of, I guess, that kind of driving thing for you. You feel like there's a lot that can be learned from history and the events and the people that of the past. Or maybe there are, we'll say, notable people who maybe were not given, we'll say, the credit that they deserve, and that this kind of stuff is important and should be, we'll say, shared with everyone else. Am I right in sort of what I'm saying here?
I don't understand why they don't teach about Hernando Cortez in school.
Yeah, because I know the name, but I don't know at all who it is.
It was a Spanish conquistador who shows up and forms the Spanish Empire.
Okay, now it sounds a little familiar. It might have been a footnote in something I had read, but
wiped out the Aztecs and Mayans.
And do you think? Well, I guess that's kind of a stupid statement on my part. Never mind. I was gonna ask you. These little things. Maybe history that goes back a little bit further. Is there something that we can really learn from that aside from the fact of we just sort of understand where we came from? Because a lot of times when people are talking about repeating history, they're talking more about, we'll say, recent history. But I know you like to dip a little bit further back. What do you think? There's any sort of lessons that we can learn more so from, we'll say, older history than, we'll say, more modern history? I know I'm throwing you curveballs. I'm sorry. I'm going way off script, way off topic here. I'm just like I'm curious because I feel like we haven't talked about why you do what you do.
The first thing that comes to my mind is from comparing ancient history to current. Like, what can we take from it? Is the fact that the English showed up in Britannia, which is now what we call Britain, showed up there, and the one general couldn't figure out why all his soldiers were getting sick until he was watching them and realized that one guy is defecating in the river upstream and another guy is drinking from it downstream. And he realized getting sick from the water. So he made regulations. You can't poo near the water and you can't pee near it. You have to, and then we learned stuff from this. Something we still have the problems with, where they're not even filtered. Some of these municipalities in this country don't actually clean the water properly. That's why everyone drinks bottled water, because the town is too cheap to throw in an extra tablet of chlorine to kill off the bacteria.
So basically you're saying, we'll say, older history is basically the class in common sense that we never got.
That that's not important anymore. You could just have bottled water. It's cheaper. No, it's actually worse because the plastic doesn't melt. The plastic you can't recycle. It's too thin. It just sits in when you throw it into the recycling bin, they take that, throw it in a different bin, and that gets sent over to the garbage dump and sits there and pollutes the environment because they don't want to actually put some extra chemicals in the water for us to clean it.
Did you just say keys?
Keys.
Okay, I think that's the second time your voice is cut out. all I hear is keys. Keys.
Keys.
I'm just going to pretend that I understood you that time, and we're going to
cut it out a third time.
I don't know if maybe it's just the way you're pronouncing it or the way you're coming through on my end. I'm not sure what word you're trying to use. Let's just move on.
Maybe there's some. I know you're really good at computers. Maybe you have some certain words are just blocked if you hear it. It picks up the frequency, blocks it immediately.
Yes, that's what I've done. I'm like, there are certain words I do not want to heard audibly, so I'm going to put a filter on it so that I don't have to hear it. And now I scared him away.
No,
he's like, Jason's lost his mind. I'm out of here.
Well. Speaking of losing my mind, I think it was like 2 episodes ago. I was complaining that Windows 12 just crashes all the time.
You are in the future.
Yeah.
You just said Windows 12. I'm like, wow. How is Windows 12? Yes, I remember you saying that Windows 10 had issues. Yes.
Well, one of the issues I figured it out. Why it kept crashing. Sage headset.
Sage headset. So your headset was causing the crash?
I have it in. I'm listening. Thing crashes. Reboot it. Within a few minutes, it crashes. I unplug it, and a different headset. No crashes. plug the Sadies back in, crash. There's something wrong with it that it crashes. And I had noticed that the USB was a little extra wobbly than it should be. So I don't think it's sitting in properly, and it's creating a short, which then crashes the computer because it's trying to figure out why is there so much electricity going over here or something like that.
Okay. I did do, we'll say, a quick sort of search on this. Now, you're saying it's crashing. Are you going like full blue screen?
Yeah.
All right. So typically blue screens are caused by either hardware or driver failures, and being that typically drivers because it does something with the hardware that it doesn't like. And sure enough, when I did do a little bit of Google searching, it does appear that it's actually not just those headsets. I've seen some reports of other types of headsets sort of causing this sort of same problem, and a lot of the suggestions tend to revolve around, we'll say, reinstalling, we'll say, drivers, sound drivers, USB drivers. Stuff like that from, we'll say, like, USB drivers from the manufacturer of your, let's say, your motherboard, or audio drivers maybe related to, whatever your audio hardware is. But basically, what it can do is it can cause a conflict where you actually have two drivers trying to do the same thing with two different pieces of hardware. And basically, it just causes Windows to go, what the heck is going on? Shut her down. Shut everything down now. And that's a possibility. There's also the possibility that maybe there is an actual physical defect with the hardware. But from, we'll say, a cursory sort of glance, through Google, it does appear that, certain headsets, particularly, we'll say, USB headsets, they tend to have more of a, we'll say, a tendency, or they're more likely to sort of cause problems with audio drivers.
That headset is absolutely garbage.
Yeah?
Absolutely garbage. I bought it specifically to replace the Turtle Beach headset I'm using now, because this one only has, I can hear you in my left ear, and that's it. Buy them to replace these, and I plug them in, go to record, the microphone doesn't work. Okay,
lovely.
maybe it's on the computer. I'll try it on the 360. Same thing, doesn't work. The Xbox One doesn't even recognize that there's a headphone being plugged in. So that thing is defective, or they're just made really bad. I just remember the other thing is that it said in the packaging that some users have noticed a humming sound while using it, and this is unavoidable. What?
Really?
Yeah, you listen to music, you get a bzzz. How the hell are you supposed? Why would you sell this? You know it's defective. It's broke.
It actually says this in the packaging.
Yeah, there's something wrong with it. It makes a humming noise.
That reminds me of like when I called.
Computer you bought that was crap.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. About my Dell, they're like, oh yeah, it's a known problem that the motherboard is screwed up, it overheats, and it likes to fry the fan. I'm like, oh, and why are you still selling this? Oh, because we have it and people are still buying it, so we're making money. It's like, oh, thanks. They didn't actually say that. If they had, man, that would have been awesome. I wish I would have had that recorded, but they didn't, unfortunately. But yeah, that's terrible. Were they like that out of the box? They were just
out of the box, horrible. So, but thankfully, I was had bought that one and a other headset that's auxiliary jack, so that I could plug it into my iPod and listen to it that way. Because I don't like the earbuds. I've just been using the other ones, which are iHomes. Ever heard of this brand? Actually, really good quality. Until it broke on me.
The mark of a true quality product.
Headband part, it snapped in the middle because that was plastic.
Huh.
It's not durable enough. It was just a plastic piece on top, and I pulled it off my head a little too wide. But they're still good headphones. So now I put them on my head, and then I put a wool cap over the headphones to hold them tight to my head.
Yeah, I think I'm still using some old Sony old like stereo mics, like the not mics, sorry,
Walkman
headphones.
Ones.
No, like the great big cans, with the really long cord that's like plug in to something across the room with them. And I bought those, I want to say like 15 years ago, and they're still sort of kicking. So
it's amazing that the prices are going up and the quality is going down.
Yep, that's basically what we've become. We have sort of transitioned into a disposable society where everything's sort of disposable and everything's being bought on a cycle, and that's how you maximize profits, right? Is by using the cheapest components possible and making it so that people have to continuously keep buying stuff. Gone are the days of we'll say quality components and products that are meant to last, because that is not profitable. Because if everyone had something that didn't break and it lasted forever, nobody would be buying the new hotness.
That's the thing. The companies that do actually make their stuff durable, sell it for like 9 times the price, and people won't buy it.
Yeah, they won't buy it, and that's the thing. Is it's us, the consumer. It's kind of us that's at fault. Is that we're accepting these subpar products because we want that initial low cost up front.
Remember how we had a little discussion about Linux?
Maybe.
Remember that? It was like 6 months ago. Yeah,
I remember it in vivid detail, every word.
Well, you were saying that, oh no, you don't want to get Linux. It's I'm like, the issue is I'm not happy with Windows. I don't like it, and I don't want to get Apple because it's overpriced. The products are really durable. It's completely overpriced. What the next option is getting something else like Linux or what was the other one? There's one I found out last night and I forgot what it's called.
I would stick to, if you wanted to jump operating systems from Windows, I would say don't go to any, we'll say, of these other ones, because the chances are you're not going to find like any applications or any programs that are going to work with it. Linux, as limited as it can be, and as we'll say, rough as it can be for somebody who maybe is not entirely computer savvy or doesn't want to put the time in to really learn how to we'll say operate a computer, because you learn very quickly how much Windows does for you. Just it's gotten better, but there are still some things where you're like, man, Windows would have just taken care of this automatically, and Linux is still playing catch up, and it still doesn't have the same amount of software as Windows has. But something else that is not even, we'll say, Linux based, I would be very wary of switching over to that, especially if you haven't at least played with Linux first.
Apparently, Linux Mint is completely capable of, it recognizes Mac and Windows stuff, and then you won't have an issue using iTunes in it, apparently.
I actually have experience with Linux Mint. It's one of my, we'll say, preferred Linux distributions, just because how close it is to Windows. Linux Mint is actually a very good distribution, but to say that it is 100%, we'll say, a replacement for either Mac or Apple is a bit of a false statement. There are still going to be some issues, definitely with compatibility, but it is very good.
There's a huge problem. I'm watching a video and I'm going, I don't know what you're talking about. Why do you keep calling it a distribution? What the hell is a distribution?
All right.
Outside of the internet, a distribution is a place where they it's the post office. They get it and then they send it off. They distribute it to the people. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
All right. So basically, Linux itself is like think of it as a core. It's just sort of a like the Linux kernel is sort of the core, and then around that, basically that kernel is what basically interfaces a lot with, we'll say, hardware and this and that, and takes care of all that stuff. It's basically like the heart of Linux. And then what's happened is that part of Linux is the sort of free open source available for everyone thing, and that people tend to build things around. So what happens is there's a lot of different people who took Linux and decided to take it in different directions. And then you end up with these different branches of Linux. You got your, if I'm remembering my different branches right, you had like there was like the Ubuntu, and then there was like the Red Hat. There was with Debian. Sorry, I think I'm going a little bit too high level here. But basically, there was different types, we'll say, flavors of Linux, and not all of them were entirely, we'll say, compatible with each other. There was some slight differences. So now what you have is many different flavors of Linux that you can get. They all have the same core, but they're all somewhat different, and some of them are tailored to be, better in certain areas than others. Like, for example, Linux Mint seeks to kind of help transition people from, we'll say, Windows and Mac to more of a Linux operating system. So, you could go to that for that. Now, if you want something a little bit more, we'll say, bare bones, there are smaller distributions of Linux that don't, we'll say, do as much stuff for you. They might be faster, but they require more know-how, or there's some that might be geared to do things a little bit differently. And each of those are called like different distributions. They're different. Essentially what they are, they're different flavors of Linux. Now, just a heads up, we did start a little bit late. I can push it a little bit further, but we probably want to, if there's, we'll say, one topic you want to, we'll say, dive into before I have to go.
Well, there's
now would be the time.
There's that one cloud just hovering over us that we always have to mention.
What is it?
The Elder Scrolls.
What about the Elder Scrolls?
Skyblivion.
What about Skyblivion? Tell me about Skyblivion.
Doesn't that sound cool? You could play Oblivion on the Skyrim engine?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't?
I'm sorry.
You don't want to play Oblivion in the Skyrim engine?
No, see, I think my problem with Skyrim is actually kind of the engine itself. It's cool, like it is very cool. It's kind of like what we talked about a little bit earlier with like say ESO. I find things, right after ESO, we were talking about, some things being a little bit dumbed down or the detail being lower. Skyrim has, we'll say, a lot stripped out from, we'll say, the Elder Scrolls experience that I'm kind of like, well, why would I play Skyblivion instead of just modded Oblivion? Like, what is the selling point of Skyblivion? Well,
you can't play Oblivion on the Xbox One.
Wait, okay, now I'm going to back up a little bit. You were talking about Skyblivion, and you're mentioning the Xbox One.
Yeah, because Skyblivion would be on the remastered Skyrim one, which essentially is the same thing with Fallout 4. It's that engine. So you'd be able to play it on the newer system.
Is this confirmed? Like, would Skyblivion be available on Xbox One?
Well, there's a team working on it still.
Wait. So it's actually... Now, that is something. Okay. So if Skyblivion is going to become available for those on console, that is interesting. However, like, do you have a source on this? Is this like wishful thinking, or is this?
No, there's a Wikipedia page, right?
Okay.
And then I also watched the video by Gopher, who is a huge Skyrim guy or a Bethesda guy, and he's got a video called Skyblivion. I need this in my life, and it was uploaded 6 days ago from us recording it. I'm gonna put a link in the description so anyone that wants to go watch it can watch it, but. He talks about it that the company the team working on it, they need people that can do lighting script and all the stuff like that, all the technical stuff. Still, they're still building it basically. So there's no actual date when it's supposed to be coming out. Unfortunately, when they finish it is when it's going to come out.
Okay, but there's nothing here saying that it would be able to work on console. Like, do you have any source saying that it will be making its way to console?
I'm assuming it's going to be on console as a mod, probably.
Yeah, because I know that some mods were supposedly going to be available on console. However, I'm wondering exactly like what they're going to be doing, because if they're going to be modding that, I'm not sure exactly. We'll say the logistics of how we'll say the console would work, or how the mods on the console will work. But I do know that the consoles are dealing with a specific. No, I guess RAM wouldn't really be, as long as it could all be stored on like the internal storage. I'd have to look a little bit more into that. I'd have to see, what the limits are on the mods for console, because there are definitely going to be some limits on there. So I guess there's a possibility, depending on how big the mod happens to be, but. Right now, based on just on what I was trying to look up while you were talking, based on what I've seen, I don't really see any concrete evidence showing that it is coming to console. But if it does, that would be amazing, and that would basically answer my question. Why would you want that? Yes, if it was completely recreated within the Skyrim engine and available on consoles, that would be very cool. That would actually be very cool.
Oh, and there's also Skyblivion, the YouTube page, the YouTube channel, which I just found.
I had been aware of the mod for some time. That and was it Skywind? I think it was.
Yeah, that was the first one for Morrowind with Skyrim.
Yeah, and I believe that one's also still under construction. So I was aware of both of these. I had largely, we'll say, assumed that this would just be a PC thing, because these mods are massive. And I know that the console manufacturers do tend to have a little bit more of a, we'll say, a limit on, we'll say, maybe how things can be done. I don't know exactly, we'll say, the logistics. I'm not going to speculate anymore, because I feel like I'm not informed enough, or I don't have enough information to really make we'll say, an educated or a proper assessment of things. But like I said, it looks, if it allows those games to be played on, we'll say, the newer consoles, albeit, we'll say, modded in, that is cool. I do wonder if, because in essence, if they are recreating these games, I wonder what Bethesda's policy will be on these, because in essence, they are allowing people to get these games for free. Because think about that. If somebody recreates all of Oblivion in the Skyrim engine and puts it down as a mod, then that sort of, we'll say, infringes a little bit on Bethesda's copyright, and it makes their game Oblivion obsolete. It makes it so that, well, maybe not obsolete, but it does take away from some of the value, and it kind of removes some of the incentive for people to actually purchase Oblivion. So I guess there's a little bit of it being in Bethesda's court too, if they want to allow this, or how they feel about this mod. because ultimately I think that they would be the ones curating the mod section and deciding if this is going to make its way to console.
Actually, as you're talking, I'm thinking, no, I don't think it would really be an issue about them losing money because you still have to buy Skyrim to get the mod.
Yeah, but instead of
So you're still buying
Skyrim, but instead of buying Skyrim and Oblivion, now you're just buying Skyrim.
But think about it. Say you've beaten Skyrim 70 times on the Xbox 360, you get the Xbox One, and you're going, wait, I could play Oblivion on this thing now with better graphics? I'll buy Skyrim again. Some people may just do that because they can play Oblivion or Morrowind using Skyrim, so they'll do it.
Yeah, I still like that. That is, we'll say, a one line of thinking, but there's no guarantee that those people had Skyrim before. Yes, that is a possible way of thinking, and but at the same time, it still does infringe on their copyright. And if they let that go, actually, yeah, now that I think about that, if they, even with the PC projects, if they let those projects go, they are not, we'll say, protecting that copyright necessarily. So if people put out these projects, then I suppose it would be actually now that if I'm thinking about this, wait a minute. Okay, you know, I'm definitely going to need to do a little bit more research before we dive into this. But if I recall correctly, the PC versions of the mods require that you have the original Morrowind game. Like, for example, Skywind. If I'm remembering correctly, to play Skywind on PC, you also need to own Morrowind because it actually uses some of the original Morrowind files. And the way they do that, it ensures that people have to have purchased Morrowind as well. I will have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. So if that is the case, then that would pretty much kill these projects for consoles altogether because there's no way for you to purchase those games on those systems to be able to mod that in yourself. Yeah, because I'm looking here at the... Are you still there? Yeah, because I'm looking at the TES Renewal project, and I'm looking under like More Oblivion and let me see. Like, okay, for example, More Oblivion, there you do need to have the original Morrowind to be able to mod it in. So like there's the mod, but then you also have to take your legitimate Morrowind files and put them in there. So yes, right here, let me see. What do I need to run Skywind? This is from the Skywind FAQ. Currently, Skywind is not available for public download due to its alpha state. Okay, that's understandable. When it is released, you will need the following: The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, including the Blood Moon and Tribunal expansions installed correctly on your system, and The Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim and Dragonborn and Dawnguard expansions. And it says right in big, bold, capital letters, you need legitimate copies of both games. So that basically outlines it right there, that unless you can purchase Morrowind on, and this is for Skywind, but I'm assuming that this would also apply to Skyblivion as well. Unless you can actually have those legitimate copies on your hard drive of the device you plan on playing the mod on, the mod will not work. So that pretty much states right there that they will more than likely not be available on console.
Damn it!
Sorry.
Why did you have to crush my dreams?
Sorry, you should get it on the PC, man.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No. Because I would have to learn how to actually do stuff on that.
Oh, no, you'd have to learn? Oh, disgusting.
Yeah, it is, see? Even you agree. You use a PC all the time. I would do gaming if there was...
sarcasm.
I would do it if there was Linux gaming.
There are some games available on Linux, but it's largely...
not good ones.
Well, no, like Linux support has been improving over time, and there are like native versions of a lot of games. Like if I'm remembering correctly, like most Blizzard games have Linux versions. I know Valve is actually Valve and Steam. We'll just say Valve has been actually a pretty big proponent of Linux, especially with their Steambox initiative. So that means that stuff like Counter-Strike, for example, is available on Linux. Dota 2. There are some we'll call them real games that are totally available on Linux, but the selection is much more limited than just if you were on Windows. That is going to do it for my time for today, though. So let's throw in our plugs, and I will have to be going. Are you still there? You look like you're still there, but you're not saying anything. Hello? Okay, now legit. Like, did you drop, or are you still there? All right, well, I guess I'll end things off. He's gone. All right. looks like he disconnected. All right, so it looks like we lost Brian, also known as Azrael Enterprise. It looks like he just, I don't know, something happened with his internet connection and he has gone. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the show out myself right now here. I have been Jason. We'll say formerly known online as Blue Screen Jason. You can find all my stuff at bluescreen.ca. That's BLUSCREEN.ca. You'll find links to my YouTube channel where I do a lot of video gaming gameplay videos, I guess we'll say, and we'll say commentary on that. There's also a very infrequently updated, we'll say, comic on there. You'll find my Twitter and all that. But if you don't want to go to my website first, you can go find me on Twitter at bluescreen_Jason. That's spelled the same way, BLUSCREEN. Our friend Brian here, Azrael Enterprise, can be found on YouTube using the same name, and his other channel, which you can also find a link to from his Azrael Enterprise page, can be found at Base Hopper. We have been the Younger Scrolls, and this concludes this episode. And so until next time, I'm going to go ahead and use my typical sign-off phrase of game on.